Thank you, Carolina, for the introduction, and congratulations so much on the release of the book, Lily. I finished reading it yesterday, and for those who haven't read it yet, it's fantastic. And thank you for having a chat with me today.
Oh, thank you. And also, may I just add, I really want to thank all the fathers, especially Happy Father's Day, for joining here today.
So as we mentioned,
and also I apologize in advance for the 2-year-old son complaining with us, and who's a little grumpy because he's jet lagged. Thanks for your understanding.
So as we mentioned in the introduction, you have a Master's in Mathematics and a PhD in Physics. So how does one go from these amazing academic achievements to then writing a novel? And I guess, do you see any overlap between like your work at university and I suppose the creative arts?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I think I'm the kind. A lot of you who know me from high school and all would know that I've always been interested in a lot of things. I've really broad interest. So in high school, I was translating Japanese anime and manga, making subtitles. Like I wanted to be a translator, and I also got interested in violin making. So after high school, I actually went to Italy for a year, like looking into violin making and was learning Italian. And yeah, at university, I did biology first, and then math and physics. So I would not say like I was exactly transitioning from one thing to another, but rather Australia as a teenager, hardly speaking any English. I never even considered becoming a writer in the English language especially. So it was not my childhood dream at all. And later I stumbled upon it and just stuck with it because I feel I've gained a lot of unique life experiences. And also more than writing and physics or anything else, I actually like traveling more than anything else. And so all my life experiences really compelled me to write. Yeah, because there's so many stories to tell. Yeah, that's what brought me. And as to if there's any overlapping, yeah, they do seem super different. But at the same time, I would say the analytical skills I gained through math and physics really helped me in rewriting and like restructuring the novel. Improving characterization or stuff, or like anything, because I think writing is divided into two parts. One is the creative part, where it's when you write the first draft, the stories in your head, you want to put it down on the paper. And to me, that's actually the easier part, that's the shorter part. The other part, which takes way longer, is the rewriting part. Yeah, like that can take a few years, and that sometimes requires you to like restructure everything. And I'm able to figure out the issues and solve them. And I think that's largely thanks to the physics. Thanks to physics and all the analytical skills I gained.
Amazing. That's really interesting. Well, amazing. Well, I mean, I guess as far as the process of writing this book, take us a bit through when and where you were writing it and sort of how we get to publishing. And I understand there was a lot of research for the book. What did that process look like for you?
Yeah, actually, I don't think I did much research at all. Yeah, I think generally I write from experience because this book is about. Maybe I should give a one-line overview of the book first.
Sure.
Yeah, for people who don't know at all. So this is the part of the Silkworm is both a coming of age story and a revenge story. So it's about a girl from rural China, Sichuan, who grows up under the one-child policy, and then about her vengeance against a government official. So later in life, she moves to Shanghai, trying to take revenge on a government official who forced her mother to go through an abortion at the time, which killed her mother. So this is the story.
Yeah.
And and you were asking about research. So because I am an only child from the one-child policy period, a lot of it just comes from my real life as well as the stories I heard growing up. Yeah, as you all know, like I think China has a lot of censorship, so it's difficult to write about such a topic. And I wanted to spread words of the trauma my own generation went through. So that's how this came about.
And I guess that definitely reads in the book like very much connected to that experience. And I suppose like growing up, everyone would have such a unique experience of that policy and what what it did to their family.
Exactly.
So
yeah, and I wanted to explore both rural and urban Chinese life. So this book is really split into two parts. One is her coming of age, which is rural China. The other part is current, which is still 2002, but in Shanghai. And the chapters alternate, so it's like present, past, present, past.
Yeah. Amazing. And I guess where I suppose did the motivation for writing this book come from? Like where were you and sort of what time period was this in?
Yeah. So I've always I wrote this novel in several places, but I don't think they actually not China. But I started drafting in Australia actually. When I was on a break. But I've had the story in mind for a long time. Yeah,
just
I also wrote it. Yeah, but what's behind it? So this book is actually dedicated to my aunt and uncle in China because it was a family tragedy, but they lost their only child. Yeah, they had during the one-child policy. My cousin passed away from brain tumor as a teenager. And my aunt and uncle, just like a lot of parents, including my own mother who's here today, wanted to have more than one child. And yet it was basically illegal. So it caused a lot of tragedies. And now for my aunt and uncle in their old age, without a child living in China still, it's very painful. And so the motivation really came from within.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, we've sort of touched on it already, but it does sound like this novel was really inspired by your own personal experiences. Is there anything else you can tell us about how that impacted the writing of this book?
I mean, all of it almost came from personal experience. Of course, it's not just mine, but personally in a broader sense. China as a country overall, the people there, like what everyone lives through. I think, in particular, as I mentioned, information is not shared in the same way we get information here. Like a lot of personal stories in rural areas, especially, they are often they're not told to the whole country. So, for example, one of the biggest tragedies of the one-child policy is female infanticide. It happened even before the one-child policy. Because traditionally in China, boys are valued way more than girls. So then there are lots of stories in rural areas where families, in order to get around the policy, they simply cast aside newborn girls.
And I guess that's a really harrowing part of the book to read how
absolutely. So there are some trigger warnings.
But it's really important that message comes through because I think, like you said, it can be quite censored. I'm sure it's quite celebrated as like this amazing policy that was like there for a reason and it's going to do great things for China, and it's really interesting to see how that policy then impacts everyday people.
Exactly. A lot of individuals were sacrificed.
Definitely.
I think it's important for someone to bring out.
Definitely. Especially as it sounds like generation through generation, everyone has experienced it slightly different, just in one generation. So I think that's really interesting.
Exactly. And also, actually, the most famous novel about the one-child policy is called Frog by the Chinese Nobel Prize winner Mo Yan, and I do highly recommend it. It's absolutely brilliant. But at the same time, he is based in China, so he does have to pass the censorship, so he can only portray characters in certain ways. The most humanized character in that book is an abortion enforcer. It's a brilliant book. It's one perspective, and I am an only child from the one-child policy period, and I feel we need another perspective.
Definitely. And your book does a really great job of that too, giving different perspectives of the different people in the main character's life and sort of how the same situation impacted everyone so differently. So
exactly. Like it definitely impacted both poor rural families as well as richer urban families.
Even the government officials as well who have to carry out these everyday tasks.
Everyone's a human.
100%. For sure. Amazing. Well, moving on to the main character of the book, I suppose. Can you tell us a bit more, I guess, about her story? We sort of went over it briefly, but without spoiling the ending, so people don't know what's going to happen. But can you tell us a bit more about her story and how you came up with this character?
Sure. So Chen Di, as I mentioned, is from a rural farming family in Sichuan, and I want to start a little bit maybe about her name. So Di in Chinese a lot of you know, it means brother, but actually the exact character I use is girl, brother. So girl on the left side, brother on the other side. So she has no identity in a way. Her existence to her family is a symbol, like for her to bring along a little brother. That's the only reason why she exists, in order to bring along a little brother. And this brings me to the 1.5 child policy that I want to mention. I actually didn't know about that when I lived in China. So everyone has heard of 1 child policy, but in a lot of rural areas, it was actually a 1.5 child policy. So it means if your first child is a boy, then that's it for you. That's your only child. If your first child is a girl, then you get a chance to have another.
Yeah.
So
it was really interesting.
Right, in a way it's there like to curb, the mentality that, boys are worth more than girls and all that. But at the same time, the policy almost explicitly says, girls are worth half boys.
100%.
Yeah.
And I guess her realization of that as a character when her little brother's born, to realize,
exactly.
this is not exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, so even Chen Di herself was looking forward to the brother, and everyone was looking forward to her mom giving birth to another. When it's finally a boy, that was supposed to be some moment, right? And yet, something then, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but something happens to her brother, and her journey in the present storyline in Shanghai is about her. It's about her revenge, of course, but at the same time, in Shanghai, she meets a teenage boy who reminds her of her little brother, and that's where the story really kicks off.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, amazing. Well, can you tell us a bit? You mentioned before that you love to travel, and traveling is kind of your biggest love. Can you tell us a bit how traveling impacts your writing?
So I don't think it impacts it directly, but in an indirect way, definitely, because I feel traveling gives us a lot of different perspectives. Like, there's just nothing really compares with it to me. Like, everyone's different. I think some authors, they have the talent to just sit at home and write brilliantly, and I'm not that kind of person. And I feel in order for me to create different characters with different worldviews, different perspectives, and everything. I need to, and my travel really helps me. Of course, I didn't travel in order to write, because I enjoy traveling itself, like meeting different people, seeing different ways of life, and learning from them, really. But it gave me so many different perspectives that help me when it comes to shaping different characters.
Yeah, amazing. And I guess even within the book, you see that dynamic when, Chengdu moves to Shanghai and how it's so different there for her, and the cultures are so different, and then you have her teacher who's also from a different area, and how that even plays an impact within the characters within China themselves.
And really, the more I travel, I do realize we're all similar rather than different. Like when you go down,
we have more in common.
Like in the book, for example, one side thing that I explore is how migrant workers are treated in Shanghai. So in Shanghai, there's actually a household registration system that's a little like the visas, in Western nations that say you give to an immigrant.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's very similar. So in Shanghai, like even in my experience too, like looking back, a lot of Shanghainese would look down on migrant workers from rural areas who come to work hard and make a living. And I've seen that in Australia, in the US too, like how some immigrants are treated, right? Like it's 100%. The same.
Even if, like, I suppose in China as well, if the parents have 2 children under that 1.5 child policy, they're immediately seen as outsiders as well. I think that was explored really well in the book. In Shanghai, they're seen as outsiders if they have 2 children. So
you don't even have to be immigrant. It was in China. So many people did everything to get around them. And that's not, so this is not exactly in the story, but I know, for example, so the majority of Chinese are Han Chinese, that's the ethnicity. But if you were of a different ethnicity, then you can have more than one. And people just, reported they had, they were of a different ethnicity on the paper in order to have another child. Like everyone did everything to get around the policy.
Getting real creative to get around the policies.
Right. And it's a little ironic now, because now you guys all know, like China's encouraging 3 kids. Population is going up.
For sure. I mean, amazing. And I guess at the end of the book, you mentioned some of the texts that you recommend that we explore if we're interested in that policy. And I guess, what are any other books or pieces of literature that have inspired you as an author?
Oh, yeah. So about this book in particular, I wouldn't say another book inspired me to write this book because it's really from my life. Yeah. But I do have some favorite authors. For example, I love A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mistry. Yeah, I was telling my high school English teacher about this. Yeah, and so it's a book set in India about the emergency period back in the 1970s. Yeah, and exploring four very different people's lives.
Very different perspectives. Well, I guess, do you have anything else you'd really like to touch on before we move on to a reading from the book and I guess open it up to audience questions as well?
I would rather save more time for everyone's questions. Yeah, so thank you of your questions. Yeah, I'd love to read a little bit.
Amazing.
Of the book. Okay, I'll just, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll just read the first page and half or something. Okay, just 2 pages. Okay. So, The Cry of the Silkworm. 1. Shanghai, winter 2002. Chen Di came to Shanghai to kill. She hid behind a plane tree on the bustling pavement and fixed her gaze across the road on the sign, Shanghai Family Planning Commission. Lucky. She raised her arm to check and recheck her green watch and pulled up her green jacket's hood to hide her face. Any minute now, she could stride through the gate into the government building. It had 10 stories, but was still more wide than tall. Its glass walls allowing officials to see out, but no one to see in. On a pole at the front fluttered a national flag, as red as the jeep that had abducted Chen Di's beloved mother. Her 8 months pregnant body folded away like a quilt. Hours later, they brought her back, limp, lifeless, her belly still bulging. Motorcycles whizzed between honking cars. Plumes of exhaust permeated the grey city air at the start of another year. Nothing like Chen Di's village, nothing like the cotton field she'd left behind at age 17, 3 years ago today. Dusty wind whipped her in the face as parents sped past on bicycles. On each of their bag carriers sat a single precious little one, cared for, doted on, loved, boy or girl. A stain inside her, she tore her eyes away from the passing children. Mission first. Chen Di gripped the handlebars of her tricycle. The attached cart was cluttered with DVDs that she couldn't care less about selling, each one in a plastic sleeve. All Hollywood, all bootlegs. She focused on the gate, the plane tree's leafless branches hovering over her, the north wind pricking her bones like wet needles. She rubbed her cold hands together and bent to rearrange the DVDs, assuring passers-by she was out hawking and hawking only. Across the road, the silver sliding gate opened just enough for one person to fit, or two if they were as petite as Chen Di. Officials arrived on foot and on bicycles, greeted by a guard. A bald man grinned as he sauntered inside, his mouth open like a puppet. Which unlucky family would they destroy today? Her muscles tensed. She had felt the small man approach from the right almost before she saw him. He wore a black overcoat and a knitted hat and swung his briefcase like he had good news to report. His heart-shaped face was the one cemented in her mind, which had haunted her village like a malevolent spirit. The face of mother's murderer. I'll stop here.
And I guess before we move on to audience questions, I just wanted to ask, is there anything else you're working on at the moment?
Oh, yeah, sure. Actually, something really different. I have many, different ideas, but as we mentioned before, I was living in Pakistan. I still visit every month. So my next novel that my agent is going to submit to publish pretty soon is, right now it's titled The Desert Between Us. And it's a story set in Pakistan. And maybe a little more commercial than this one. It's about a Pakistani woman who lures an American woman to Pakistan in order to punish the American for having stolen her husband.
So very exciting. Well, I'm very much looking forward to reading
Yeah, that's also actually based on some real life. Yeah, anyway, that was not time for that. And then I'm also working on a US project set in Sweden. I lived in Sweden during the COVID years. Yeah.
Incredible. Master of many talents and a world traveler. Perfect. Well, are there any questions from the audience? Don't be shy.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your writing process, because you were probably writing a lot of academic papers, and then this is your first novel. So, can you tell us a bit more about what your writing process was like?
Like constructing the story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
sure.
how long it took to
Oh
go
yeah,
through the
of
drafts
course. Right. Yeah, I thought it was a great break from my academic work. It's so different from physics. Like it uses different parts of your brain. Yeah. So I started writing towards the end of my PhD at Harvard, but it wasn't this novel. And initially, I was really just writing for fun. And as I mentioned, English is like my third language, so I never expected to do it seriously. But I went to some local workshop, and then people thought I was good at it, which was a surprise to me. But I decided to then pursue it seriously. And let me think. Yeah, the first draft probably only it took less than a year, but the rewriting took forever. I took a writing course back in Boston and made some friends there. So we're in a writing group. So I got critique from them, and then I sent my draft to an agent. In between, I also was helped by Australian Society of Author and Copyright Agency. If you guys are interested in writing, you should look into the funding and all they provided. So I had a great mentor there too, who actually connected me to her London-based agency. Mm-hmm. So now I'm with a New York-based agent, but before I was with a London-based one. And I worked with my agent, who made me change a lot of things. For example, now the protagonist is Changi. It's only from her point of view, although it's from her as a child's point of view as well as her adult point of view. But when I first wrote it, it was also from the point of view of the boy she met in Shanghai, who reminded her of her little brother. I know he agrees. But that made the story too complicated. So my agent told me to just. So I keep the boy character still, but I don't tell it from his perspective too. So the rewriting took a long time, and then she submitted. I worked with her for a year. Then she submitted to several British publishers, including Atlantic Books, which is affiliated with Unwin in Australia. So then I got a book deal, which was 2 years ago. It takes 2 years between you get your advance and book deal and the book actually coming out. Right. And in between the 2 years, I had to work with an editor, taking her suggestions into consideration again, and then wait as they design the cover. And it's amazing. That was how it went. Did I answer you? Yeah.
I haven't read the book yet, but I'm excited to. It sounds like something that could turn into a movie.
Oh my god, something, yeah. But unfortunately, I think it will probably be banned in China.
Any other questions from the audience?
When you are designing your characters for your story, what's when you're working out what characterization you're going to use for each of them, what's the most interesting part of that for you?
It was actually very. I had to change the characterizations a bit. Yeah, that's a great question. So initially, I think my protagonist Chandy was too cold. Because I do feel when you're traumatized as a child. So a little more. When Chandy was little, she was treated terribly by her family, and when she had the little brother, especially her grandfather literally told her, "You are your brother's pal, her horse, for the rest of her life." And I do feel when you live through all that kind of stuff as a child, and she lost her mother, right? It becomes very painful, and it distorts you. And also in that environment, in the 80s, 90s in China, there's no psychologist there to help you. There's no therapist, and you have to somehow
She's supposed to
struggle
grow up
with
very quickly.
yeah, a struggle with it. And she was basically the caretaker of her brother. So when you live your life like that, a part of you becomes so distorted. And I can imagine people then becoming really cold and hard, focused on your revenge. So initially she was a colder character, but then I did realize through my agents and critic partners help, that readers don't like such characters. Yeah, even if I make her understandable, we have people in our real life, acquaintances who are, we probably don't want to be friends with them. We understand what made them who they are, but we don't exactly want to hang out with them. So if you don't like the protagonist, it's going to be a bit difficult. So that actually, it's really a great question. It brings me to how, I do have to consider the market and what's publishable. Yeah, which is really tough. I think in many jobs, you have to consider a similar kind of thing. Like for me, because, I do have to do a lot of bridging, like across cultures too. Like there's some proverbs in Chinese that I use, and I have to translate them in such a way that it's accessible to Western readers, so that I reach more people. Yeah, initially it was, to be honest, a little frustrating that I have to do that, but then I came around it, and it is my goal to bridge people around the whole world. So I'm happy to do that. Yeah, so that is something I had to work on. Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah, one by one. Okay, Jess.
I feel like I've already learned a lot kind of hearing you talk about the book, and I'm sure there's going to be so many more insights when you read it. But for you as the author, what is a thought or a feeling or a word that you want people, after they've read it, to walk away with?
Yeah, great. That's another great question. Again, it's related to like what I had to rewrite and fix. Yeah, because I won't spoil the ending, but the ending now is completely different. Compared with the ending I had in my first draft. Right now, as I mentioned, of course, China has a lot of problems. There are lots of problems in many countries in the world, but I do want people to still have hope, despite some tragedies that came about as a result of the one-child policy. So I hope by the end you will still feel some hope. It doesn't depress you to the point that because there are lots of traumatic moments in the book.
Yeah. I mean, as someone who's read the book and finished it, I think it does end, and I think that some of the themes that stuck with me was like sort of this ability to be so resilient and to like forgive and like all these sort of things. So there's a lot of great themes in the book, I suppose, but those core themes of like what really is meant to stick with you, I think definitely does. So amazing question.
Well, my question is kind of a practical one, a bit more. When I met you, we were at uni, and I was doing my PhD myself, and I was wondering, towards the end, I was just no time for anything else other than finishing my thesis, and I was thinking, how the hell do you find time? By the end of the PhD, started a novel, and then you went to Sweden, you had a little boy. I just don't know how you find your time.
I must first say he's more work than anything else. Nothing even compares. My respect to any parents, really. So generally I work very hard, and now I wake up at 4 a.m. I write from 4 to 8, and I take care of his sort of my job right now. Also, we just moved last year, but even back then I've always been an early riser. I get up at 5, but also like related to what I mentioned before, I love physics. I love my research really, and writing was my break from it. So it was my entertainment. I guess even now.
It's your downtime.
Right. I mean, I do feel after, because I moved to Australia, like to a Western country in my teens, and but even now I have a lot to catch up on like popular shows in the West. I feel I'm not nearly as
pop culture.
Right, and that I should know that better too. But I do take writing as my break from physics, and physics as break from writing. So that's how I managed, I guess. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks. I think we had some other hands up before. Yeah.
My question is, you said that in high school you were really interested in transcribing. And
Translating.
yes, and then you speak a number of languages. Do you have any plans to either translate your current book or to write a book in another language? And if so, how do you think that might change, or do you think it would change the story that you write, or the structure, or like the techniques that you use, the characters you develop?
Yeah. Wow, what an interesting question. Yeah. So first, I don't want to read this book again. Yeah, maybe in several years, but I do think when I read it again, I'm just gonna want to tear it apart and rewrite it again, and fix this and that, and think, oh my god, how could I have written? Like there will always be ways to improve it. That's what's sometimes a little annoying when it comes to writing compared with physics and math. I feel when we have the answer, we have the answer. So writing is not like that. I could always improve. So if I were to translate it, I would definitely want to change it. So yeah, I mean, I think it would be interesting to attempt to like translate my own book, but at the same time, I do want to leave that to someone else, a professional translator, to translate my book. Actually, right now the book is being translated to Bulgarian and Italian.
Wow, that's
So yeah, that's probably gonna come out next year. But yeah, and for example, yeah, I actually know Italian. So when the translator has done the job, I would definitely like to read through it. Maybe like before it's out. So if there's something that I think they got wrong, I could help them fix it. Yeah. So yeah, but I think time is limited, especially now that I have a baby. So I would devote my time on writing more books. And, but
amazing.
Yeah.
That's it.
I was just curious.
Yeah, and I could have always had more than one child. And also, even in China now, the policy has become something of the past. But you know, in China, the government often teaches you to look forward, and forget any trauma we experienced in the past. So everything's just brushed aside. That's one reason I'm writing this book. But to me now, as a mother, yeah, I want to have more than one child. He's my first, but yeah. So I thought it was a little lonely growing up alone, even though my cousin Juliet has always been my best friend. And so yeah, and she's the only child too. But I do think it's wonderful to have company, and yeah, so I would like to have more than one child.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
The first question, is this your first book or first series?
It's my first book, and right now I don't consider. Do you mean like it's gonna be series?
You mentioned you did a lot of hobby work.
Oh yeah.
Is this the first official series?
Actually, this is the first published novel, but actually I have a completely different manuscript that has nothing to do with this. That one was also actually set in Pakistan. That was my first practice, I would say. But it's never published. It's in my drawer.
The second question is that since this is a story about China, so I'm just wondering, the main character, Chen Yi, right?
Yeah.
How many image of you put on this character?
You mean how I put whether
how much you put? Is that mean, do you put any yourself in this character?
Yeah, I wonder that's so interesting. Actually, I did put some of myself. So I was born in Shanghai, which is quite different from Chengdu. But even in Shanghai, I was from quite an average family. We had to share one toilet with our neighbors. That's just the average. In my time, 1990s, in China, you have to share a kitchen, toilet with others, otherwise you're really privileged. So Chengdu is from an even less privileged background. But at the same time, she's so determined. She's so keen. Her family don't care about giving girls education. But she's determined to get educated and all. And another little thing that I put, I don't know if I should say myself, but in order to give her a broader perspective, it's really her education, where she's taught by a teacher who came from a much more like sophisticated background, let's say, like educated here and there in the West even. So that it would be reasonable for her to hold certain worldviews. and which I share partly, but I'm not her exactly. Yeah.
I understand. You will not kill.
Yeah, you're right. A part of me is in her.
Yeah.
I think even when like we split our own, like the writer splits her personality into several parts and put that into different characters. Because we all, there's no good person, bad person. Everyone has good sides and bad sides, and you put some of your this personality and that quality into your character. That's how I make them. Yeah, so not even just Trendy, some others too.
Any final questions from the audience? No? Well, thank you so. Oh, no, yes.
Okay, this is my third one, the last one. Be honest, at this moment, you are not very famous. So, I mean, at this moment, if a film movie producer come to just spend a quite not very expensive price to buy all your copyright for the movie. I just wonder, you will sell it in a not very expensive price, or you will wait until. Why?
That's such an interesting question. I wish I knew better so that I could give you a proper answer. I guess what I care more is not, as an artist, is not the money, but rather if they're gonna do a good job making a movie, if they'll have proper actors and actresses to actually shoot it. Because I am a little skeptical, as I mentioned, it's probably going to be banned in China, so I don't know how it's going to be made, and I can see it being maybe a not authentic way. Say in a Western country, let's like pretend this was Shanghai or something. Yeah. So I care more about the quality than the actual money. But at the same time, like practically speaking, that's a question for my agent. Yeah. she does take 15% of everything I earn, so I'm gonna leave it to her to educate me more on that. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, incredible questions, everyone. They were all great questions, and I thank you so much for chatting with me. I look forward to you all reading the book. Like I said, I loved it. I could not put it down. It was an incredible novel, and thank you so much for chatting to us. There's going to be a signing on the mezzanine, and there's also copies of the book available if you don't have one already. But thank you so much for joining me, and thank you everyone for attending.